Before we show you the data, we need to show you why you have the right to see it. The First Amendment protects the right to examine public records and publish findings without prior restraint. The Fifth Amendment guarantees due process. When institutions fail to disclose, citizens must verify independently. The Sixth Amendment guarantees a public trial, proceedings in open court. When sealed records contradict public narratives, the public interest demands disclosure. These rights are not granted by government. They are retained by the people. What you are about to see is built entirely from public court filings, government registries, and unsealed evidence. Verification of public records is not activism. It is citizenship, and it is constitutionally protected. Before we begin, here's what this episode covers in 30 seconds. A 55-pound FedEx shipment was sent to someone named Robert in Hawaii. Our pipeline matched the name to Robert Crumb, the underground comics artist. It was wrong. Crumb has lived in France since 1991. The business listed on the invoice doesn't exist. The sender address isn't even Epstein's. But that error triggered the Corroboration Protocol, the same protocol that confirmed 7 corporate entities against government registries, 6 aircraft against the FAA, 8 properties against public records, and 6 named associates against court testimony. This episode shows both sides, what failed and what survived. 1 refuted finding, dozens of confirmations, 5 corrected dates, 2 OCR name artifacts caught and fixed. The lesson: name matching is necessary but not sufficient. External verification is what separates a finding from a guess. 1. In a project that has produced 2.38 million named entities, 29.5 million relationship pairs, and hundreds of individual findings across 6 episodes, 1 observation was fully refuted. OBS 1. Robert Crumb. Every other episode in this series shows you what the data revealed. This episode shows you what the data got wrong, and the process that caught it before it was published as fact. Here is the record. Tracking number 6264536779092, November 2nd, 2001, FedEx 2-day service. Look at the sender field. The OCR rendered it as .Effery Eostian. That's Jeffrey Epstein, mangled by optical character recognition on a degraded invoice scan. The sender address, 30 East 65th Street, New York. The recipient, Robert. The company field, Art CF Women. OCR's version of Art of Women. Haleiwa, Hawaii. 55 pounds. 55 pounds is heavy. The median weight of a FedEx shipment in this dataset is 1 pound. The mean is 7.3. 55 pounds is more than 7 times the average. And it was signed by someone OCR rendered as N. Capiral, another artifact. We don't know who actually signed for this package. Here is the hypothesis that formed. OCR text, Robert. Company field, Art of Women. The pipeline's NER system matched the name. The analyst's brain did the rest. Robert Crumb, R. Crumb, is an iconic underground cartoonist known for provocative and sexually explicit artwork. Art of Women sounded like a plausible art portfolio title. 55 pounds is the weight of a substantial art shipment, framed prints, a portfolio, original artwork. And Epstein was a known collector and patron of the arts. Each link in this chain was individually plausible: a name, a context, a weight, a sender. The initial assessment was high confidence. This is exactly the kind of reasoning that confirmation bias exploits. When you want a match to be true, every detail seems to support it. The 55 pounds becomes evidence of art. The Art of Women becomes a portfolio title. The name becomes the famous artist. The assessment after verification. Wrong. Every single link. Source check. This is a recurring segment in every episode. Where does the data come from? Document EFTA 013-13111, page 7. DOJ Dataset 10, a FedEx shipping invoice. OCR confidence, approximately 0.56, meaning nearly half the characters on the page may be wrong. The identification of Robert Crumb was based entirely on OCR extracted text from this single degraded page. No independent source was consulted before the initial assessment. No biographical check, no business registration search, no geographic verification. That was the problem. A single source with known degradation was treated as sufficient for identification. The Corroboration Protocol exists precisely to prevent this. The Corroboration Protocol. Before any observation is published in this series, it must survive an attempt to disprove it. Not confirm it, disprove it. The process works in 5 stages. First, discovery. The pipeline flags something. Second, hypothesis formation. The analyst looks at the data and forms an interpretation. Third, external verification. Web-only research agents, separate from the local pipeline, search public records. Fourth, adversarial testing. This is the critical step. The protocol assumes the finding is wrong and actively looks for evidence that contradicts it. Fifth, the verdict. Confirmed, refuted, unverified, corrected. The sources we check include corporate registries in New York, Delaware, and the Virgin Islands, the FAA Aircraft Registry, court filings in PACER and SDNY, biographical databases, property records, business registrations, IRS nonprofit filings through ProPublica. The standard is simple. Can the findings survive an attempt to disprove it? If not, it doesn't get published. Refutation Point 1. Geography. The claim was that Robert Crumb received a 55-pound package in Haleiwa, Hawaii in November 2001. Robert Crumb has lived in Sauve, France since 1991. He moved from the United States to a stone farmhouse in southern France. He still lives there. No biographical source, and there are many because Crumb is one of the most documented artists of the 20th century, places him in Hawaii at any point. No Hawaii address, no Hawaii travel in 2001. The recipient named Robert in Haleiwa is not the artist Robert Crumb. Geography alone refutes the identification. Refutation Point 2. Bibliography. The company field on the invoice was OCR'd as Art CF Women, interpreted as Art of Women. The hypothesis assumed this was a Robert Crumb work, a portfolio title, an art collection, something that connected the shipment to the artist. Art of Women does not exist, not as a book, not as a portfolio, not as a series, not as a business entity registered in Hawaii or anywhere else. Crumb's published bibliography includes hundreds of titles spanning 6 decades. None of them match. And there's a deeper problem. The OCR rendered the field as Art CF Women. The original text on the degraded invoice may not even say Art of Women. CF could be an OCR corruption of, or it could be something else entirely. We're building an identification on text we can't fully read. Refutation point 3. The address. The sender address on the invoice was 30 East 65th Street. The hypothesis assumed this was an Epstein address. 30 East 65th Street is the Colony House, a 17-story, 65-unit white glove co-op. Epstein had no known connection to this building. Epstein's actual Manhattan addresses were 9 East 71st Street, the townhouse held through NES LLC, 116 East 65th, Ghislaine Maxwell's townhouse, confirmed in FedEx records where she appears as G. Maxwell at that address, and 301 East 66th, a building owned by his brother Mark through OSA Properties. 30 East 65th is likely an OCR corruption of one of these real addresses. 9 East 71st becomes 30 East 65th through degraded character recognition. Or 116 East 65th loses its prefix. The sender address doesn't just fail to confirm the hypothesis, it actively undermines it. If this package wasn't sent from an Epstein address, the entire identification chain weakens further. OBS1, Robert Crumb, refuted. 4 tests, 4 failures. Geographic verification, fail. Crumb has been in France since 1991. Bibliographic verification, fail. Art of Women doesn't exist. Address verification, fail. 30 East 65th Street isn't Epstein's address. Name uniqueness, fail. Robert Crumb is not a unique name. There are other people named Robert Crumb. All 4 identification pillars collapsed under external verification. The recipient, Robert, at the Hawaii address is an unidentified person, not the artist, not the cartoonist, someone else. OBS1 is reclassified from an active observation to a refuted hypothesis. It will remain in our records, marked as refuted, because deleting errors is worse than disclosing them. What would have happened? Without the Corroboration Protocol, this is what would have appeared in this series. A 55-pound package was shipped from Jeffrey Epstein's Manhattan address to underground cartoonist Robert Crumb in Hawaii. The package was described as Art of Women. Crumb is known for provocative, sexually explicit artwork. Read that again. It sounds credible. It sounds specific. It has a tracking number and a weight and an address. It has the kind of detail that makes people trust a claim. And every word of the conclusion is wrong. It would have been reported. It would have been shared. It would have been cited in other analyses. And once it was out there, once a false finding enters the information ecosystem, corrections rarely catch up. The original claim spreads. The retraction doesn't. The entity matching was correct. The name Robert matched Robert Crumb, but the person didn't match. Name matching alone is insufficient. The same protocol that caught OBS1 caught these. Dave Limer. This name appeared in FedEx records and was extracted by the pipeline as a person. It was propagated through the entity database, but when we searched for Dave Limer in public records, 0 results. No person by that name in any database we checked. The known second Epstein pilot is David Rogers. He kept the flight logs. He testified at the Maxwell trial. He appears in FAA records. Dave Limer is an OCR artifact, a degraded scan that turned David Rogers into a phantom person. Lauren Quine, same pattern. The name appeared in FedEx records as a sender associated with NYSG LLC. The actual person is Lauren J. Quintner, a New York licensed attorney. OCR truncated Quintner to Quine. Both names were in the database as real people. The Corroboration Protocol identified them as OCR artifacts and corrected them. OCR artifacts don't just garble text, they create phantom people. Every unverified name in the database could be a Dave Limer, a real-sounding name that belongs to nobody. The address correction is its own lesson. 30 East 65th Street appeared as the sender address on the OBS-1 shipment. It's not an Epstein address, but look at the addresses it could have been. 9 East 71st Street, the actual Epstein townhouse held through NES LLC. 116 East 65th, Maxwell's townhouse, confirmed in FedEx records. 301 East 66th, a building connected to Epstein's brother Mark through OSA Properties. Any of these could produce 30 East 65th through OCR degradation, digit substitution, truncation, character level corruption. But here's an interesting pattern. In the entire FedEx dataset, 2,894 shipments, 0 originate from 9 East 71st Street. 0. The Manhattan townhouse generated no outbound shipping. Everything went through the office at 457 Madison Avenue. The mansion was a residence, not an operations hub. The office was where the shipping happened. So even if the address is an OCR artifact, and it almost certainly is, the underlying question remains: who actually sent this package? OBS-5 and OBS-6. 2 observations retracted entirely. OBS-5, Poland. A Deutsche Bank Know Your Customer form, page 17 of document EFTA 01268833. The OCR reported the nationality of a second beneficial owner as Poland. We inspected the source PDF. The form was completely blank. No names, no addresses, no nationality. All fields empty. The OCR engine hallucinated Poland from the pre-printed form label. It read U.S. persons/non-U.S. persons and produced Pion/Stoli, Poland. 6,876 Poland entity mentions in the database. A significant fraction are this same artifact, repeated across hundreds of blank KYC pages. OBS-6, Krakow. 190 pages of Ghislaine Maxwell's UBS account statements. Every page has the header Resource Management Account. The OCR turned Management Account into Krakow, creating a phantom Polish city reference across 190 pages. 0 verified Krakow references exist in the 2.1 million document corpus. The city name was entirely fabricated by OCR. The Corroboration Protocol doesn't just check names and addresses, it checks dates. Our calibration timeline, 50 verified dates from 2005 through 2026, was tested against primary government and court sources. 5 dates were wrong. The non-prosecution agreement. We had June 30th, 2007. The correct date is September 24th, 86 days later. Epstein's jail sentence start. We were off by 1 day. We had July 1st. The correct date is June 30th, the same day as the guilty plea. Giuffre versus Maxwell filing. We had January 2nd, 2015. The correct date is September 21st, 262 days later, more than 8 months off. The USVI versus JP Morgan settlement, off by 252 days. And the Deutsche Bank NYDFS consent order. We had November 2019. The correct date is July 6th, 2020, 8 months later. 5 dates, some off by a day, some off by 8 months. None of these errors would have changed our conclusions, but they would have undermined our credibility if published uncorrected. Pipeline stage. This is the verification node. It sits outside the main pipeline. The paper trail pipeline has 27 numbered scripts. They run locally on a single machine. A consumer GPU, open source software, the full 2.1 million document corpus. The pipeline produces entities, relationships, scores. The corroboration system is separate. It runs on web-only research agents. It checks individual findings against public records, corporate registries, the FAA, court filings, biographical databases. It produces verdicts. Independence is the point. The corroboration system cannot see the pipeline's data. The pipeline cannot see the corroboration results. Neither can contaminate the other. If the pipeline says Robert Crumb and the corroboration system says not Robert Crumb, the corroboration system wins. External evidence overrides internal analysis. Always. Now look at what survived. The same corroboration process that destroyed OBS1 was applied across 6 verification domains. Corporate registries. 7 entities tested, 7 confirmed. Not a single false entity in the corporate data. The pipeline correctly identified NYSG LLC, NES LLC, Jeggy Inc., Jeggy LLC, Southern Financial, Southern Trust, and Gratitude America. FAA aircraft, 11 tail numbers checked, 6 confirmed as Epstein aircraft, 5 confirmed as not Epstein, also a useful result. One surprise, the tail number N212JE was used by 2 different airframes at different times. Named associates, 6 of 8 confirmed. 1 was an OCR artifact. 1 was an OCR truncation. Properties, 7 of 8 confirmed. 53 items tested, 36 confirmed, 6 refuted or excluded, 10 corrected, 1 unresolved. The protocol doesn't just catch errors, it produces a verified foundation for everything else in the series. 7 corporate entities, all confirmed. NYSG LLC, New York, filed January 13th, 2000, currently inactive, confirmed through the New York Department of State. NES LLC, the entity that holds the Manhattan Townhouse, filed 1998, still active. DOS ID 2288572, confirmed. Jege Incorporated, Delaware, filed September 2000. The entity that held the Boeing 727 and the first Gulfstream ceased 2018. Confirmed through the Delaware Division of Corporations, file number 3284812. Jege LLC, the Virgin Islands successor entity, filed 2012, sold to Thomas Huff in June 2019, 1 month before Epstein's arrest. Southern Financial, Southern Trust, Gratitude America, all Virgin Islands entities, all confirmed through their respective registries. Southern Financial even has a legal entity identifier, a globally unique financial identifier that we verified. Every single corporate entity that the pipeline extracted from 2.1 million documents checked out against external registries. The FAA verification. We checked 11 tail numbers against the Federal Aviation Administration Aircraft Registry. 6 confirmed as Epstein aircraft. 5 confirmed as not Epstein, which is equally important. The confirmed fleet: N908JE, the Boeing 727, the one the media calls the Lolita Express, owned by JEG Incorporated, currently grounded in Georgia with its engines removed. N909JE, a Gulfstream G2B, exported to Venezuela in December 2014. The buyer has reported ties to sanctioned Venezuelan individuals. N212JE, and this is where it gets interesting. This tail number was used by 2 different airframes, a Gulfstream G4 from 2013 to 2017, then a Gulfstream G550 from 2018 to 2021. N722JE, a Sikorsky helicopter, originally registered as Air Ghislaine. N331JE, a Bell 430 helicopter. And the exclusions: N121JE through N125JE, all checked, none connected to Epstein. VistaJet, in ultralight, reserve numbers, no records. The exclusions matter because they demonstrate the protocol doesn't just confirm, it actively identifies false positives. N212JE, 1 tail number, 2 aircraft. From May 2013 to August 2017, N212JE was a Gulfstream G4, serial number 1085, owned by JEG LLC. Then it was re-registered as N120JE. From January 2018 to March 2021, N212JE was a different aircraft entirely, a Gulfstream G550, serial number 5173, owned by Plan D LLC. Then it was re-registered as N550GP. Without this verification, any analysis of flight logs mentioning N212JE would treat these as the same aircraft. They're not. Different airframes, different serial numbers, different owner entities. The only thing they share is a tail number, recycled between 2 aircraft with a gap in between. The G550 has its own story. Sold to Thomas Huff in June 2019, 1 month before Epstein's arrest. Re-registered, listed at $16.9 million. Used by the Trump campaign in 2024. This is the kind of detail that corroboration reveals, not a false finding, not a correction, a nuance that changes how you read every other piece of data. 8 properties, 7 confirmed, 1 corrected. The Manhattan townhouse at 9 East 71st Street, transferred from Wexner to Epstein through NES LLC, sold for $51 million in 2021 to Goldman Sachs executive Michael Daffy. 457 Madison Avenue, not owned by Epstein, leased office space in the Villard houses. This is important because some analyses assumed it was an Epstein property. It wasn't. It was a lease. Palm Beach, 358 El Brillo Way, demolished in April 2021. The lot was rebuilt as 360 El Brillo. The 2 Virgin Islands, Little St. James and Great St. James, sold together for approximately $60 million to Stephen Deckoff. Resort development plans have stalled. Zorro Ranch in New Mexico, currently under active criminal investigation by the New Mexico Attorney General. A $2 million budget, subpoena power, report due July 2026. Paris, 22 Avenue Foch, sold for 10 million euros. And the FBO at Palm Beach International, another lease, not owned property. Total estate property liquidation, approximately $160 million, all verified against public records. 6 named associates confirmed through external sources. Ghislaine Maxwell, 69 FedEx hits, both sender and recipient, confirmed through court records and DOJ filings. This is the same person whose UBS account statements we found in OBS 6. Lawrence Visosky, chief pilot, 15 FedEx hits, confirmed through FAA records and Maxwell trial testimony. Larry Morrison, office staff at 457 Madison. Juan Alessi, Palm Beach house manager from 1991 to 2002. Janusz Banasiak, Palm Beach butler, all confirmed through Maxwell trial testimony. Ed Razik, L Brands and Victoria's Secret executive, confirmed through corporate records. And the 2 corrections. Dave Limmer, an OCR Phantom. The actual second pilot is David Rogers, who kept the flight logs and testified at the Maxwell trial. Lauren Quine, OCR truncation of Lauren Quintner, a New York attorney associated with NYSG LLC. 6 real people confirmed, 2 OCR artifacts identified and corrected. That's the protocol working. The officer matrix. This is what the Corroboration Protocol produced when we cross-referenced all 7 confirmed entities against their registered officers. Jeffrey Epstein appears as CEO, President, Director, or sole stockholder on 8 entities across New York, Delaware, the Virgin Islands, and internationally. Darren K. Indyke, Epstein's in-house attorney, appears on 9 entities. He touches every major corporate vehicle. NISG LLC, NES LLC, JEGG Inc., Southern Trust, Gratitude America, The Butterfly Trust, Hyperion Air, Freedom Air, Southern Country International. Richard Kahn, the accountant, appears on 5 entities. He and Indike are co-trustees of the Butterfly Trust and co-executors of the estate. Lawrence Visosky, the chief pilot, appears on 4 entities, all aviation-related: JEGE Inc., JEGE LLC, Hyperion Air, Plan D LLC. And look at the address convergence: 6100 Red Hook Quarter, St. Thomas, U.S. Virgin Islands. 3 entities share this address: Southern Financial, NES LLC after its 2013 address change, and JEGE LLC. This matrix was assembled entirely from external corporate registries. The pipeline found the entity names. The protocol verified the officers. The 4-check standard. Before an entity match becomes a published observation in this series, it must pass all 4 checks. Check 1. Name match. Does the name match a known person? For OBS 1, yes. Robert matches Robert Crumb. This check passed, and this is where most online analysis stops. A name matches and the conclusion follows. Check 2. Geographic verification. Is the person plausibly at this location? For OBS 1, no. Crumb has been in France since 1991. Failed. Check 3. Biographical verification. Does the context match the person's known profile? Art of Women doesn't appear in Crumb's bibliography. Failed. Check 4. Source verification. Does the underlying source data support the identification? The sender address isn't even Epstein's. Failed. OBS 1 passed 1 check out of 4. 1 out of 4 is not a finding. It's a hypothesis that collapsed under testing. All 4 must pass. That's the standard. OBS 4, John Waters. Apply the standard. Name match, pass. John Waters matches the filmmaker John Waters, but here's the problem. John Waters is a common name. Unlike Robert Crumb, which is distinctive enough to narrow the search, John Waters could be anyone. Geographic verification, inconclusive. The filmmaker is based in Baltimore. The shipments go to various locations. Nothing confirms, nothing refutes. Biographical verification, inconclusive. Nothing in the shipping records, no company name, no reference field, no context, specifically identifies the filmmaker. Source verification, inconclusive. 13 FedEx shipments. All we know is a name and addresses. This is what unverified looks like. It's not refuted. We can't prove it's not the filmmaker. It's not confirmed. We can't prove it is. It sits in the space between, where honest analysis says, we don't know. And we don't know is a valid conclusion, one that most online analysis refuses to reach. Why does this matter? False findings spread. Corrections rarely catch up. That's not a theory. It's an observed property of information ecosystems. The original claim travels faster and farther than its retraction. The Epstein case is particularly contaminated by misinformation. Celebrity name matches that were never verified against public records. Flight log passengers identified by first name only. Bill becomes Bill Clinton without verification. Network diagrams built on unverified OCR output. Connections inferred because 2 names appear in the same dataset, without checking whether they appear in the same document, on the same page, or in the same context. Every unverified claim discredits the verified ones. When someone publishes a false connection, like our Robert Crumb identification would have been, it doesn't just mislead, it provides ammunition. See, they got Robert Crumb wrong. Why should we trust anything else? The Corroboration Protocol exists to prevent exactly this, not because errors are avoidable, they're not, but because published errors without correction undermine the entire field. We caught OBS1 before it was published. That's the difference. What you can do. Before sharing any claim about this case, from any source, including this series, run the 4-check standard yourself. 1. Check the source document. Does the claim cite a specific document with a Bates number? If not, if it says, documents show, without telling you which documents, be skeptical. 2. Check the name. Is the person identified by full name, or just a first name, or OCR fragment? Robert is not Robert Crumb. Bill is not Bill Clinton. 3. Check the geography. Was the person plausibly at the claimed location at the claimed time? Robert Crumb was in France. That took 5 minutes to verify. 4. Check the context. Does the surrounding data support the identification or just the name match? A compelling narrative is not evidence. A name match is not identification. A FedEx record is not a conviction. Apply this standard to our work, and apply it to everyone else's. Transparent science. This is the recurring segment where we tell you exactly what we showed, what we didn't claim, and what we don't know. What we showed. 1. Fully refuted observation. 2. Retracted observations. Both OCR hallucinations on forms that were actually blank. 2 name artifacts caught and corrected. 1 address artifact identified. 5 dates corrected, and 36 items confirmed across 6 verification domains. What we did not claim. We did not claim that all findings in this series are error-free. We did not claim the Corroboration Protocol catches every false positive. We did not claim that OCR artifacts have been fully eliminated from the database. And we did not claim that every confirmed entity will remain confirmed as new evidence emerges. Science is provisional. Verification is ongoing. What remains unknown? Who is the actual Robert in Haleiwa? We don't know. What was in the 55-pound package? We don't know. How many phantom entities remain in the 2.38 million entity database? We don't know. What fraction of the 6,876 Poland mentions are real versus OCR artifacts? We don't know. We present what we found and what we corrected. The unknowns remain. Error log. NER tag OBS1 Robert is not Robert Crumb. Refuted. Geographic, bibliographic, and address verification all failed. OCR tags OBS5 Poland hallucinated from a blank KYC form. Retracted. 6,876 entity mentions contaminated by this artifact. OBS6 Krakow hallucinated from a UBS account statement header. Retracted. 0 verified Krakow references exist in the entire corpus. Dave Limmer, corrected to David Rogers, a phantom person created by OCR. Lauren Quine, corrected to Lauren Quintner, OCR truncation. 30 East 65th Street, corrected, not an Epstein address. Calibration tag, 5 dates corrected across the timeline. FAA tag, N212JE, identified as 2 different airframes. Tail number recycling. Date-dependent disambiguation now required in all flight log analysis. Next episode, EP08, 8 aircraft. Shell companies, tail number recycling, and a fleet sold before arrest. 1 shipment, 1 name, 1 wrong conclusion. Robert Crumb lives in France. He has since 1991. The package went to a different Robert. Without the Corroboration Protocol, that false finding would be in this series right now. This is why the method matters more than the findings. References and verification ledger. Every claim in this episode is sourced. 118 individual claims, 118 verified, 0 unverified. Nearly half, 46.6%, trace directly to primary government and court records, corporate registries in New York, Delaware, and the Virgin Islands, the FAA Aircraft Registry, court filings in Pacer and SDNY. Another 37% come from database queries and pipeline outputs. The remaining claims are sourced from published journalism or explicit calculations. The full verification ledger maps every claim to its source, document, section, and tier. It is available for independent review. This is how transparent science works. You don't ask the audience to trust you. You show them the receipts.